No, I don't believe that because the champ is very modest. You know what I mean? 'Cause
Yeah.
I seen him in the ring with killers. I seen him in there with killers like Foreman, Shavers, guys that
Yeah.
hit much harder than I.
Yeah.
And you know he takes these guys' greatest punches, and that's what made him such a champion. I mean, even though I heard him say he didn't believe, he must have believed because that's why, from watching Ali, gave me the great deal of confidence and deep down inner belief to believe there's no man on this planet could beat me. From listening to him for all those years since I was a little boy.
Yeah.
He used to make every prediction comes true. And he used to take his character and use it to reflect against his opponents. And he made them believe that he was invincible. And
Yeah.
so, that's my
Do you believe Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson were always regarded as heroes? Did you know Muhammad Ali was at one point the most hated man in America? Or do you think Mike Tyson was the only one who became lovable? Join us on this journey as we delve into the lives of two of the most iconic men of modern times and how their paths intertwined. As always, hit that like, subscribe, and share buttons. And be sure to click that notification bell. Ali and Tyson were giants of the heavyweight division, yet their names are separated by an invisible line in history. Two completely different styles, floating and stinging versus lightning and demolition. America in the 1970s versus the 1990s. Segregation, Jim Crow, and the Vietnam War versus police discrimination, the war on drugs, and rap music. Muhammad Ali, the Louisville Lip, with his poetic trash talking, and Mike Tyson, the baddest man on the planet, who hit hard and crushed harder. Let's explore the contrasting philosophies, the role of media in creating a false dichotomy, and the enduring impact of their legacies on boxing and Black Americans. To fully understand the relationship between Muhammad Ali and America, we must first step back and go through the canvas of when America first became aware of a brash kid from Louisville. It was a nation grappling with the deep scars of slavery and the lingering injustices that festered in its wake. Jim Crow laws were the teeth of this oppressive system, and while they were losing their grip, the unwritten laws of the land still adhered to a nation of boys and sirs. But hope and radical change peered across the horizon by the mid-1960s. America was in a period of significant social, political, and cultural upheaval, a period of underdogs standing up to bullies. This time in America had the Civil Rights Act, saw our president and two prominent Black figures be assassinated in broad daylight, and watched a war play out on TV for the first time. And on February 25, 1964, that's when we find a skinny kid from Louisville getting ready to shock the world. There were so many countercultures and cultural shifts in the 60s. You had the women's liberation movement, the space race between the US and the Russians, as well as the British invasion of the Beatles and Rolling Stones. But no odds were greater than the odds against Cassius Clay beating Sonny Liston at the Miami Convention Center in 1964. The convention hall was packed to the brim, filled with fans and pundits eager to witness what many believed would be a routine defense of the heavyweight title. Sonny Liston, the reigning champion, was a hulking figure of intimidation, his powerful fists having already dispatched many challengers with ease. Across the ring stood a brash young contender, Cassius Clay, whose mouth was as quick as his fists, and whose confidence seemed boundless. Clay had spent weeks taunting Liston, calling him a big ugly bear, and predicting his own victory in poetic proclamations. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. The hands can't hit what the eyes can't see. Many saw Clay's antics as mere bravado and couldn't wait to see that boy taught a lesson, but they would surely be disappointed. From the start, Clay danced around Liston, his feet a blur, his punches quick and precise. Liston, used to opponents wilting under his power, found himself swinging at air. Round after round, he was too fast for Liston, the young contender's jab snapping Liston's head back time and again. For a moment, it seemed like the fight might end in controversy. Between the third and fourth rounds, Cassius seemed blinded by an illegal substance that the desperate champion rubbed on his gloves. But even partially blinded, Clay managed to survive the round, using his feet to stay out of Liston's range. By the fifth round, his vision began to clear, and his dominance resumed. And as Cassius stood ready for the bell to signal the seventh round, the unexpected happened. Liston, the fearsome champion, the bully, did not rise from his corner. Cassius Clay became the youngest fighter to ever dethrone a heavyweight champion. In the process, prophesying to the world, "I am the greatest. I shook up the world." In the days that followed, he announced his conversion to Islam and adopted the name Muhammad Ali, a name that would become synonymous with greatness, both in and out of the ring. the 1960s continued to signal drastic changes in America. As the decade was changing, a chubby kid from Brownsville, New York, named Michael Tyson, was navigating his way to the baddest man on the planet. Raised in a crime-ridden community, young Mike experienced the harsh realities of poverty, violence, and criminal activities from an early age. By the time he was 13, Mike had been arrested almost 40 times for petty crimes and defending himself against people who made fun of his chubby frame and lisp. Tyson's trouble would lead to his grace. His troubles landed him in the Tryon School for Boys in Johnstown, New York. During this, his boxing skills were discovered by Bobby Stewart, a juvenile detention center counselor and former professional boxer. Stewart took Mike under his wing, training him for months before introducing him to legendary trainer Cus D'Amato. Mike's march to the title would be a recurring theme: tragedy to triumph. At just 16 years old, Mike Tyson's mother died, and Cus D'Amato became his legal guardian. If it wasn't for his life of crime, Mike would have never ended up in the hands of legendary trainer Cus D'Amato. Cus was known for his holistic approach to training. He emphasized mental toughness, confidence, and strategic thinking. He would hypnotize Mike, literally. Cus used hypnosis to get Tyson to believe in himself, to believe he was indeed an indestructible machine. Cus D'Amato had trained legendary boxer Floyd Patterson, guiding him to become the youngest world heavyweight champion at the age of 21 in 1956. Cus made young Mike Tyson believe he could break that record.
Michael Tyson, a wild, angry teenager from a nearby reform school.
Keep the head down when you come up with the H. Keep your head down. Yeah, I mean, it's not coming up, but it's starting to come up. You can make it perfect. It's good, but it's not perfect.
Tyson dominated the Junior Olympics in 1981 and 1982, and scored another gold medal in 1984 at the National Golden Gloves. Tyson and D'Amato had seen enough, and in 1985, at the age of 18, Mike Tyson turned pro. In the chilly town of Albany, New York, on March 6, 1985, an 18-year-old Mike Tyson stepped into the professional boxing ring for the first time. The air was thick with anticipation as Tyson faced Hector Mercedes. Within the first round, Tyson unleashed a torrent of punches, overwhelming Mercedes and securing the victory via TKO. It was a stunning debut, and the boxing world took notice. Tyson's rise was nothing short of meteoric. Within his first year, he fought an astonishing 15 bouts, maintaining a relentless pace. His power and speed were unmatched, resulting in 26 victories out of his first 28 fights by knockout. 16 of these came in the very first round. His streak of victories caught the media's eye, and soon he was being heralded as the next great heavyweight champion. But that recurring theme, tragedy to triumph. Tragically, in November 1985, Cus D'Amato died from pneumonia just as Tyson's career was beginning to soar. Mike Tyson marched on. He marched through journeymen, contenders, and former champions alike, taking them all out in ferocious style. Fans knew they couldn't afford to get popcorn during any of his fights, because the fights might be over before the kernels finished popping. After marching through every competitor, on November 22, 1986, Tyson was given a title shot against heavyweight champion Trevor Berbick. And in a display of unmatched tenacity, speed, and violence, the fight ended with a second-round knockout of the champion. And with that, Mike Tyson, at just 20 years old, became the youngest heavyweight champion ever. And Kid Dynamite became the baddest man on the planet. Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson represented two distinct but equally valid approaches to the same goal. Muhammad Ali grew into his role of poetic champion of the people who defied the power structures, while Mike Tyson fully embraced the seek and destroy mentality instilled in him, and fully embraced the vices available to a young champion, including the dark side. Their paths, forever etched in history, continue to inspire and challenge us, but also reminding us that there are many ways to reach the pinnacle. Cassius Clay had gave way to Cassius X and ended with Muhammad Ali. After his victory against Sonny Liston, Ali declared himself a black Muslim. He was given the name Muhammad Ali by Nation of Islam leader, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. His public declaration created opposition among multiple demographics in America. In regards to Ali announcing his affiliation with the Nation of Islam, Dr. Martin Luther King said, when Cassius Clay joined the black Muslims and started calling himself Cassius X, he became a champion of racial segregation. Prior to his ascension to the title, Ali also developed a friendship with Malcolm X. Malcolm played a pivotal role in recruiting Ali into the Nation of Islam. However, after Malcolm became estranged from the Nation of Islam after uncovering Elijah Muhammad's rampant adultery, Muhammad Ali stood at a crossroads. He chose the nation. By the time Ali began his title defense, his former friend Malcolm had been assassinated. On May 25, 1965, Ali began his championship defense with a rematch against Sonny Liston, went into the rematch again as an underdog. However, in what would become one of the most controversial fights in boxing history, Ali knocked out Liston in the first round with a punch that became known as the Phantom Punch. The controversial nature of the knockout led to much debate and speculation. It also gave us one of the most iconic photos ever. Ali continued to march through his opponents, mocking them, teasing them, then meticulously destroying them in the ring. Today, Muhammad Ali is looked upon as one of the greatest champions. His ability to wax poetic about his opponents and speaking out on his experience as a black man in America are now revered. However, early in his career, he was considered too cocky, too arrogant, and just as many fans wanted to see him get knocked out as they wanted him to prevail. Former champions Joe Louis and Floyd Patterson were not supporters of the way Ali carried himself. Ali, in turn, considered Louis and Patterson Uncle Toms for seemingly tiptoeing around white people. Prior to their first match, former champion Floyd Patterson said he is going to bring the title back to America, which had racial and xenophobic undertones. Ali was as American as anyone else, but because he was a black Muslim, the fight could be billed as good versus evil. From 1965 to 1967, Ali was in his prime, dismantling former champion Floyd Patterson and every other challenger. One of his most legendary performances came against Ernie Terrell on February 6, 1967. The lead up to the fight was supercharged by Terrell's unwillingness to address Ali by his new given name. Terrell repeatedly referred to the champion as Cassius Clay, and Ali promised he'd make the challenger pay. For 15 rounds, the champion pummeled Terrell, refusing to knock him out, but instead torturing him, repeatedly asking him, "What's my name?" But his biggest challenge was yet to come. Going into 1967, the war between the US and Vietnam was raging. In order to ramp up its military response in South Vietnam, the military reduced recruitment standards in order to increase the manpower needed. With the standards lowered, men who were previously not eligible for service were now considered war ready. In 1967, after previously becoming ineligible, Muhammad Ali was called to appear for induction in Houston, Texas. He refused. "I ain't got no quarrel with them Viet Cong. No Viet Cong ever called me nigger."
My conscience won't let me go shoot my brother or some darker people or some poor hungry people in the mud for big powerful America and shoot them for what? They never called me nigger. They never lynched me. They never put no dogs on me. They never robbed me of my nationality, raped and killed my mother and father. What, I'm gonna shoot them for what? How can I go shoot them? Them little poor little black people, little babies and children and women. How can I shoot them poor people? Just take me to jail.
Ali's career took a dramatic turn when he refused induction into the U.S. Army, citing his religious beliefs and opposition to the Vietnam War. On April 28, 1967, Ali was stripped of his boxing titles and licenses by the New York State Athletic Commission, and other boxing commissions followed suit. He was also convicted of draft evasion, sentenced to 5 years in prison, fined $10,000, and banned from boxing for 3 years. For standing up for his beliefs, Ali lost out on several years of his prime. Prior to his suspension, he was 29-0. The boxing world wouldn't see him again until 1970. By 1987, Mike Tyson sat on the throne as the king of the ring. He not only defended his crown as WBC heavyweight champion, but he went ahead and captured the WBA and IBF titles too. Mike Tyson's defense was impenetrable, and his punches were bombs. It was a miracle if his opponent made it out of the first round. During his early reign, another undefeated champion awaited Tyson, light heavyweight champion Michael Spinks. The fight was billed as Tyson's biggest challenge to date, as Spinks was 31-0 with 21 knockouts. The fight was billed as once and for all. Tyson scored a knockout victory in 91 seconds. Michael Spinks retired after the match. Mike Tyson's intense demeanor and attitude in the ring fueled his lifestyle outside of it. Tyson was a young champion who was just mired in crime and poverty several years prior. He had lost his mother and his mentor before he broke through as a champion. Now, he found himself surrounded by more money than he could have imagined, and more people who wanted a piece of it. Money seemed to be nothing but a means to an end for Tyson. He spent it without conscious thought. Stories of his car getting a flat tire, and instead of fixing it, just leaving it for whoever found it. Lavish spending sprees for himself and his entourage. He would later admit he was looking for love in all the wrong places. But he seemed to find it with his marriage to actress Robin Givens. The young couple met in 1987 and quickly married early the next year. At first, their marriage seemed like a high-profile fairy tale, blending the worlds of sports and entertainment. Tyson's ferocious persona in the ring was contrasted by his seemingly tender relationship with Givens. However, behind the glamorous facade, the marriage was trouble from the start. Their relationship was marked by frequent arguments, allegations of abuse, and escalating tension. Tyson's volatile temper and Givens' ambitious career pursuits created a toxic environment.
That he's hit you? That he's chased you and your mother around in Russia? That Mike has a very volatile temper? True?
Extremely volatile temper. I think people see that about every 3 months. He's got a side to him that's scary.
In a highly publicized interview with Barbara Walters on the ABC program 2020 in September 1988, Givens described her marriage to Tyson as torture, pure hell, worse than anything I could possibly imagine. She accused Tyson of domestic violence, stating that she lived in constant fear of his unpredictable outbursts. In October 1988, just 8 months after their wedding, the fairy tale couple divorced. Public opinion was split on who was to blame and who was the real victim. The terms of their settlement were never disclosed, but many believe Robin Givens and her mother took advantage of and manipulated Tyson. Tales of manipulation continue with his relationship with infamous promoter Don King. The flamboyant and controversial boxing promoter, Don King and Mike Tyson's relationship started in the mid-'80s. As the young champion's profile rose, so did King's. King, known for his ability to generate publicity and negotiate lucrative deals, helped arrange high-profile fights and secured substantial earnings for Tyson. As Tyson's manager, many believe Don King was making moves that proved the most financially beneficial instead of what was in Mike's best interest. Many believe Tyson fought too frequently, taking fights that he didn't need to. Later in his life, Tyson called Don King a ruthless, devious, and amoral character. Unfortunately, the critics were proven right on February 11, 1990. On February 11, 1990, Mike Tyson faced James "Buster" Douglas in Tokyo, in what was supposed to be a warm-up fight before a mega fight between a cruiserweight named Evander Holyfield. In one of the biggest upsets in boxing history, Buster Douglas delivered Mike Tyson not only his first loss, but it was also the first time he was knocked down. It would prove to be the first of many knockdowns the champ would experience for the next 20 years. The most troubling happened when Mike Tyson was charged and convicted of a heinous sexual crime. And on February 10, 1992, only 6 years after becoming the heavyweight champion, Mike Tyson was sentenced to 6 years in prison. He would go on to only serve 3 years, in the prime of his career. Both champions lost several years of the prime of their career, losing out on millions of dollars and atrophy that comes from non-activity in the ring. Muhammad Ali's unwillingness to conform to American policy costed him his championship belt, but he gained a new title, the People's Champ. When Muhammad Ali was suspended from boxing in 1967 for refusing induction into the U.S. Army during the Vietnam War, he faced one of the most challenging periods of his life. During his suspension, which lasted from 1960 to 1970, Ali focused on various activities that highlighted his resilience, commitment to his principles, and ability to stay in the public eye, despite not being able to compete in the sport he loved. Unlike many superstar athletes today, money was a thing. So Ali, having to spend thousands of dollars in legal fees, as well as imposed fines, put a financial strain on the champ. Being banned from boxing meant that Ali lost his primary source of income. He faced significant financial challenges, struggling to maintain his lifestyle and support his family. He avoided jail time, but he had to pay $10,000 as a fine for his refusal of induction into the Army. In the meantime, Ali became a prominent figure in the civil rights movement, using his platform to speak out against racial injustice and inequality. He aligned himself with key civil rights leaders and fellow athletes like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Jim Brown. Even though he was villainized by the media as an anti-American for his anti-war stance, he also resonated with many Americans who overwhelmingly opposed the Vietnam War. The People's Champ was invited to speak at universities, colleges, and public forums, articulating his reasons for refusing to fight in the war, as well as his opinions on the current state of African Americans. He also appeared on television shows and in promotional events, leveraging his fame and popularity to generate income. Through many of these forums, the world was able to see Ali's charisma, eloquence, and intelligence. But in the end, everyone still wanted to know, when are you coming back? Despite being unable to compete professionally, Ali remained dedicated to his training. He continued to work out and spar, maintaining his physical conditioning and staying prepared for the day he could return to the ring. The day came on October 26, 1970. After 3.5 years, Muhammad Ali was granted a fight with Jerry Quarry after the state of Georgia granted him a license to box, even though his case was still pending in the Supreme Court. His fight against Quarry marked the beginning of his comeback and the start to his march to get back his title as world champion and prove he was indeed the greatest. And the trek would be a mighty mountain to climb. After a few warm-up bouts, Ali earned himself a chance to reclaim the title that was stripped from him. His first opportunity was the fight of the century on March 8, 1971, when he took on the new heavyweight champion, Joe Frazier. After a grueling 15 rounds, for the first time in his career, Muhammad Ali lost. Many worried if Ali would bounce back. Others were ecstatic that someone may have finally shut him up. But like a great champion, he rose and marched on. Muhammad Ali went on to win 13 of his next 14 bouts, which included rematches with Floyd Patterson and Jerry Quarry. It also included a second fight with Joe Frazier. His only loss during that run came against Ken Norton, to which he went on to avenge. By 1974, Ali had put quite a pounding on his body. Fans started to notice he wasn't as fleet-footed as he once was, and was noticeably heavier and slower. He also adopted a new rope-a-dope style that required him to absorb punishment in the hopes that it would tire out his opponent. However, that style would prove consequential in the long run. At just 32 years old, Ali had fought 46 bouts. The battle-tested warrior would get another shot at glory, but it would require going through a monster. Enjoying this content? Consider clicking the join button. All your support helps in keeping our content and community strong. Thank you.
See, I outthink a man. See, the matador beats the bull. The bull is the strongest. Bull hits the hardest, but the matador is the smartest. Man conquered all the beasts in the jungles, got them in cages, but the beast can whoop the man. See, it's the brains. Man got me here in a few hours on a jumbo jet. Man didn't pick the jet up and carry it, just threw it through the air, but man's brains made the engine and the pistons and put it together. See, my brains will offset this mummy. Be at the theater early, because this man I'm gonna retire.
George Foreman was the most monstrous boxer at that time. Foreman had dismantled the two fighters Ali lost to. Both Ken Norton and Joe Frazier were clobbered by the current champion, and many believed Ali would be next. Critics considered Ali old, washed up, and way past his prime, and believed that George Foreman was the future of boxing. This fight would be billed as the Rumble in the Jungle. Ali entered the fight as a heavy underdog. Many marked this as a fight that would end Ali's career. Ali even alluded to this being his last fight, but he promised to end it as a champion. Using his intellect, Ali leaned on his rope-a-dope tactic of letting Foreman punch himself tired. Ali would lean on the ropes, inviting the champion to fire his best shots. All the while, Ali would taunt him, saying, "Is that all you got, George?" And, "They told me you could punch, George." This psychological warfare frustrated and exhausted Foreman. By the 8th round, the former champion made his move. Ali unleashed a sudden and explosive combination of punches that caught Foreman off guard. A powerful right hand, followed by a series of precise blows, sent Foreman to the canvas. Ali did the unthinkable. He won by knockout, regaining the heavyweight title in one of the most dramatic and unexpected upsets in boxing history, and cementing his legacy as the greatest. After serving 3 years for a very serious crime, Mike Tyson was released. During that, the narrative of the former champion being falsely accused, manipulated, and mismanaged garnered sympathy from fans. However, critics pointed to his conviction as an indictment on his image of being abusive and a menace to society. While imprisoned, his lure grew. Many considered his loss to Buster Douglas as a fluke. His bad boy image matched perfectly with the growing impact of hip-hop and rap, which gained him friends like rappers Tupac and Biggie. All in all, Iron Mike had his eyes on getting back his championship belts.
I was going to rip his heart out. I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me. Lynx is a conqueror. No, I'm Alexander. He's no Alexander. I'm the best ever. There's never been anybody as ruthless. I'm Sonny Liston. I'm Jack Dempsey. There's no one like me. I'm from Nairclaw. There's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous. My defense is impregnable. And I'm just ferocious. I want your heart. I want to eat his children. Praise be to Allah.
Are you saying now, Mike?
After 4 years since his last fight, on August 19, 1995, Mike Tyson began his conquest with the dismantling of Peter McNeely. It only took 90 seconds. By March of the following year, after 3 fights that totaled just 7 rounds of boxing, the baddest man reclaimed the WBC and WBA titles. What was clear, the baddest man on the planet was back. But what still persisted was the demons within and the poachers around him. Even though he had been highly critical of Don King, the promoter still had a hand in Mike's affairs, even though he marched through his competitors with ease. After losing Cruz D'Amato, Mike had trouble finding the right trainer to get him through the journey as a champion. He landed on Kevin Rooney, who helped guide him to 35-0, but their relationship ended, which many believe led to his loss against Buster Douglas. Many believe not having a steady, firm, guiding hand, someone who could hold him accountable, allowed his ego to go unchecked, which led to him not training and preparing as thoroughly as was needed to reign as champion. This all culminated in his most infamous fight, simply known as the Bite Fight. Enjoying this exclusive? Share with 5 boxing fans. November 9th, 1996, Mike Tyson took on Evander Holyfield for the first time. A fight that was several years in the making. The two had originally planned to square off in 1992, but was shelved after Tyson was convicted and sentenced to prison. The fight was highly anticipated and would be the biggest payday for Tyson at $30 million. However, the champion was outboxed and knocked down for only the second time in his career. He would go on to lose to Holyfield by an 11th round TKO. Tyson would get a second chance several months later on June 28, 1997. This time, the outcome would be much worse and more infamous. The fight began with Holyfield dominating Mike Tyson, punishing the former champion, and avoiding any of Tyson's ferocious punches. After a few rounds of frustration, Tyson did the unthinkable. He took a bite out of Holyfield's ear. Not once, but twice. In what was one of the most bizarre moments in sports history, Mike Tyson not only bit his opponent's ear, but he bit it off and spat it out. Tyson was disqualified. This fight would signal a spiral to Tyson's career that was highlighted by a lack of discipline, outrageous public outbursts, drug abuse, crime, and failure to ever regain his championship form. Mike Tyson and Muhammad Ali are regarded as arguably the 2 greatest heavyweight boxing champions ever. Their careers ran side by side with cultural movements in America, and they embodied the times respectively. After defeating George Foreman, Ali would successfully defend his title 11 times before losing his belt to Leon Spinks in 1978. However, at 36 years old, he would defy the odds again and regain his titles for a 3rd time. However, the punches began to catch up to him. Since adopting the rope-a-dope style, Ali trained himself to absorb punches. And even though the style proved successful in terms of wins and losses, the punishment began to show in Ali's health. In his interviews, the slick-tongued fighter spoke slower. His witty comebacks didn't come back as quickly as they once did. Even though he was winning, his bouts lasted longer, which meant more damage to his body, more damage to his brain. After retiring as champion in 1978, Ali made a comeback in an effort to earn his belt back in 1980 against his former sparring partner and current champion, Larry Holmes. It was apparent Ali's health was deteriorating. His speech was slow, and he was noticeably overweight. Many, including Larry Holmes, believed Ali shouldn't be in the ring, but the former champion stepped up and with his rope-a-dope style, tried to win back the title. But it only ended up affirming Ali's time in the ring had passed. Larry Holmes stopped him in the 10th round. Ali would give it one more shot against future champion Trevor Berbick. The fight took place in the Bahamas because no U.S. state would grant Ali a boxing license over concerns of his health. That bout too would end in defeat. It would be Ali's last fight. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and leave a comment below. You could win a shout out for our next video.
And Muhammad came and he visited us. And this was at the time the movie The Greatest was out. So all the kids sat down and we watched the movie The Greatest. And then Ali came in. And this is a funny story. Once I saw him and I saw his impact and what kind of aura he came once he entered the room, by no means, from watching him fight, I knew I could never copy or emulate his style because he was so far advanced as far as technology and everything. You know, he was the future as far as boxing was concerned. I said, I'm going to be like him. And I meant as far as being famous, having money, and just be me, the way I am now. You know what I mean? I said, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be just like this guy.
Ali was a champion, an inspiration to many, including a young troubled kid at a detention center. Ali's impact on Mike Tyson was so great that when he got a chance to fight Larry Holmes and Trevor Berbick, he wanted to destroy them because he saw them as the two fighters who ended his idol's career. But like his idol, Tyson too ended his boxing career on the canvas. After losing to Evander Holyfield for a second time, he would go on to lose 5 of his last 10 fights, including 2 losses by knockout and 2 no contests. One of those no contests was an overturned victory because Mike Tyson tested positive for marijuana. Unlike his idol, Mike Tyson was never looked to as a leader outside the ring. His volatile nature, public outbursts, and run-in with the law mostly placed him in the role as dangerous. A man many thought would end up dead or in prison. But after so much tragedy, Tyson began to triumph. After years away from the ring, Mike Tyson began to rebrand. It began with appearances in movies, like his hilarious cameo in the hit film The Hangover. He followed that up with his one-man show, Undisputed, which became a Broadway hit. As he got further away from the ring, in his older age, the former bad boy of boxing began to be looked upon as lovable and became a mentor, freely using his career as a cautionary tale to young boxers. His continuous growth and maturity is reflected in his current role in boxing and pop culture. Passing the torch. Mike Tyson may be considered a bad boy turned sage, but Muhammad Ali wasn't always seen as a voice of the people. For many years, many Americans still viewed Ali as a traitor who refused to serve his country and a fighter who finally got what he deserved. It's easy to look back and think he was always a people's champion. It wasn't until the mid-90s that the tide of public opinion turned in his favor. After stepping away from boxing right before the turn of the decade, in 1984, Muhammad Ali was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. The debilitating disease attacked the very weapon that made Ali the greatest, his brain. With his ability to no longer speak like he used to, it was only then that he garnered sympathy from the masses. Even with his inability to be as mobile and vocal, the champ still stood up and fought for the people. In 1990, Iraq took several foreign nationals, including Americans, hostage, using them as human shields against potential military action by the United States. To rescue the hostages, Ali stepped up to lend his voice and influence. Muhammad Ali flew to Iraq to meet with Saddam Hussein. By the end of his visit, Ali managed to secure the release of 15 American hostages. Ali's successful intervention erased any doubt of his national pride and further emphasized the love he had for people. He followed that up several years later as he shocked the world with a surprise appearance at the 1996 Summer Olympics. Even though his Parkinson's was on full display, his courage to step in front of the world cemented his title as the greatest.